Hi, how's it going? This is Resin of Colin for YouTube, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. Barnabas, the bold risk taker, and he was a risk taker. I mean, really, the first bold risk he takes is keeping Willie on as a servant. I mean, because really, what he's inviting is questions. I mean, it's sort of when you look at other characters throughout history, Dracula is somebody who didn't want too many questions asked. And to me, Barnabas, it's like he's being questioned, for having Willie under his employment. I mean, Burke is sort of even like, you know who your cousin's hiring? um, and rightfully so. I mean, Willie's caused a lot of trouble in his short stay. Again, it's a credit to both James Hall and John Carlin. They both did a really good job of, first of all, James Hall stirring the pot, flirting with Carolyn, harassing her and Vicky, causing Carolyn to pull a gun on him, um, and just being a menace, really, or to enough of a degree of a menace. So when, and John Carlin fighting with Burke in the bar, no one's forgotten it. People can't stop talking about it. Again, it's a small town. It gets into the fact that hey, this guy's trouble. If he comes back here, I'll make it. And Burke says that. So having, yes, he bites Willie. There's no question there. But keeping Willie on is a risk. And you get into when you get into characters, you're sort of getting into calculated risk that this by Barnabas, though he feels, I need Willie, this is a calculated risk. I mean, I'm sure look, he knows what kind of person Willie Loomis is. Willie tried to rob a grave. But I'm sure he's asked Willie all things concerning not just the Collins family, but himself. Okay, what did you do prior to, opening my coffin? I'm sure those questions came about. We may not hear them, but I'm sure they happened. So, he's facing questions through family members and friends of family members. Oh, hey, you really want to employ that guy? And yes, and he says about how Willie has changed. And they do sort of see, oh, okay, Willie does sort of seem different somehow. They're not questioning too much how. They're somewhat questioning it to themselves more than they are Barnabas too much. They do, I think it is questioned at least once or twice to Barnabas. I know once for sure. But the first real calculated risk is is keeping Willie around. I mean, because again, Willie's not the most reputable character. So when you get into the first real risk he's taking, this character is already a risk taker. And it's like, okay, for a vampire, he sort of, how do I put this? To me, Willie would be unwanted attention. But in many ways, he's sort of showing how he's different from these other vampires we've known before. Hey, he's basically in a way without showing it. Hey, I have nothing to hide. I'm hiring a thief, but he's changed. I. It's such a little simplistic thing to hire a shady character to show how moral of a character you really are and compassionate you are. It sort of lets you know that, hey, the Collins have a good heart. It gives a good name to them because, hey, with the Collinses come reputation, and he sort of relies on that too, and he knows that he can because he is one. So again, it's something he does that is very calculating and very methodical. And hey, it just goes to show you, hey, yes, I hired this guy. And yes, I questions were brought at me, But he did nothing to evade those questions. He took them on head on, which is why the whole matter of, the whole David Collins things really gets into the whole forefront. And he, like he goes, look, I've cooperated. I've showed you my base. He shows him everything. So again, it's something that Barnabas does time and time again. And then when you look at the kidnapping of Maggie Evans, again, here's this bold move where he's been seen with Maggie, you know, well, Maggie talks about him visiting her to Joe and stuff. And they take, Mr. Collins's cane back to him. And so again, when Maggie's kidnapped, it's not, oh, Mr. Collins has him, because they don't know, because here's this friendly man who's, very much friendly and talks to everybody, talks to family members, talks to strangers. He seems non-lethal, but underneath that, he's very dangerous. And really, one of the most bold risks he takes in doing so is asking Sam Evans to paint his portrait. Yeah, I'll pay you $1,000, but I'm also going to kidnap your daughter. Which is like, holy shit. Is interesting. So you have this moment of risk take where he's kidnapping Maggie. And, Willie knows about this. Willie knows that, he tells Maggie, hey, I can't help you. I wish I could. He's more powerful in that coffin than he is out of it. It's very dangerous for Willie. And, David's seeing, Josette, and people just dismiss it as David seeing a ghost. And, oh, it's David seeing a ghost. So, again, there's plenty of risk Barnabas takes. Let's get into the heavy, heavy risk. Barnabas going back to 1796. Bold. A flat out bold. It reminds me of the episode of Deep Space Nine, Fortune Favors the Bold. And really, if Dark Shadows episodes had titles, that's what that would be. Fortune Favors the Bold. And really, it does. I mean, fortune does favor Barnabas in every way. He takes care of Nathan Forbes in a different way. He makes him sign this document. He, confessing the testimony he gave against Vicky was false. That doesn't do anything, by the way. Again, there's a lot of things done by Barnabas when you look at that. I mean, think about it. He's taking a risk. He's seen by Millicent. The Countess is against him. They try to stake him, but Ben stops them. And these are just things that happen to Barnabas. The fact that he's willing to risk his own life to save Victoria Winters is one of the most boldest moves that he makes. And you think, man, how much bolder can this character get? We with the move of going back in time to 1796, after we've been through 1795, it's sort of like, well, consequences be damned. But when you get into 1897, is he still a bold risk taker? Yes. He's going using the I Ching, which was really unknown to him. And he's, sending his astral body back to his physical body in that time, and getting out of the coffin by Sandor. But what's most interesting about 1897 that we learn is when Angelique shows up, Angelique doesn't tell him, oh, I hate you. No, no, no. This is really one of the most interesting aspects about the Barnabas and Angelique relationship that I think sort of needs a more of an examination, and I'll try to do that here. Here's this witch who Barnabas marries, because he gave his word. He finds out she is a witch. He tries to kill her. He ends up missing the shot. I've talked about that. And she curses him to become this vampire. He ends up choking her, and she doesn't stay gone. She eventually comes back as Cassandra in the present day in the 60s. and eventually she's destroyed again, seemingly, but not really, because in 1897, here's Quentin Collins and um, oh god, what's his name, the attorney Evan Hanley, bring her straight out of hell. Really, that episode, that's what that needs to be called, straight out of hell. If they could label the Dark Shadows episodes, I'm sure we'd all have a different one, like a difference of opinion. I'd love to hear you guys's. Um, so when she comes there, Quentin's like, "We don't want any trouble," and she's like, "Then you shouldn't summon me." It's a great line, and you think, okay, what's Angelique going to do here? Is she just going to go straight after Barnabas? And that's what's most shocking about 1897. She doesn't go after Barnabas in a sense. She doesn't try to strike him down. She doesn't try to mess with him. Not at all. And this this here, I got the good stuff. That's A&W root beer. It's diet soda. I got the good stuff. Um, so she talks to him. She not only talks to him. This is really a shock. She warns him. And I think when we think back to Angelique has said, "Hey, I do love Barnabas. I want to be with Barnabas. I don't want anyone else to be with Barnabas." And really, I mean, isn't that what love, somewhat of love is? She just wants to be loved by the man she loves. Here's her. You know, she does in the '60s. We see her try to go after him, but this, no. She's warned him. She goes, "You need to leave," and he's like, "What? What do you mean I need to leave? If you don't leave, you'll end up getting killed." And really, if you stay, excuse me, you're only going to make things worse than what they are. Um, and here's the thing. She says, "You're here to solve the curse of the werewolf. There's nothing you can do to change it." And guess what? Angelique's right. And really, when you look at 1897 and what really happens, does Barnabas really change anything? Does Barnabas change Quentin's fate? No. Does Barnabas change Chris's fate? No, he doesn't. That does not happen. He does not change. Though he takes this, again, yes, Barnabas is a bold risk taker. Absolutely. 1000%, no question. But at the end of the day, here's a man who goes back to 1897 to find out what's wrong with the children, to find out what's going on with this werewolf curse, and to find out about Quentin Collins and how he's involved in all this. And guess what? Nothing changes. The only thing that changes is that the children are okay by the time he comes back. So he does fix something to the degree of, and here's what I take away most. When we look at 1897, if we, again, my buddy Patrick McRae, shout out to him. He points out that this could be a trap by Judah Zachary, which is really interesting. Here's what I take away most. Was the hand of Count Patofi always a use? I would say yes, because Magda would have probably been dealing with Quentin more hands-on after missing killing him, after missing the opportunity of killing him. And again, there was a lot of tension between him and Magda, rightfully so, because again, here's Jenny, who was killed. Jenny, Magda's sister, who was killed by Quentin, and which that's what brought on Magda cursing Quentin as a werewolf. So Magda, to me, always stole the hand. And to me, maybe in some weird way. And again, my view of this is far fetched. If you disagree, please do, please do. Uh, here's the one thing I take away from this. When Patofe got into Quentin's body, Quentin may have been alive. He may have not had the curse of the werewolf. But in the same sense, because again, he didn't always have function with the hand, maybe the hand did stick with him, and maybe it is Quentin that is sealed up in his room. Maybe that's what it is. It's people realized that, and again, I don't know what would have specifically happened if maybe the Count doesn't necessarily curse the people of Collinwood. Maybe he doesn't do this kissing maneuver and start, controlling the Collins family because, again, there's no Barnabas. So maybe he tells Quentin, hey, I want my hand, and he does something to Tad. He does do, or, sorry, not Tad, but Jameson. He does something to Jameson that does not affect the family, but affects Jameson, and that's why Quentin gives him the hand. So, because he doesn't want to see Jameson hurt, and again, when that happens, now, with Patofi having the hand, he does this body swap with Quentin. The family realizes it and goes, okay, we got to trick him. And then they lock him in that room. They brick him, they knock him unconscious, and they brick him up. So there is that thing. Sorry. But what you have here with Barnabas going back is it changes from whatever it was to Barnabas. I would say Carl probably doesn't die. But again, Carl does end up dying because of Barnabas. He kills him. Again, I've talked about how Barnabas going back to 1897, I don't know what death's toll was for the town of Collinsport for 1897, but when Barnabas got there, business was booming. And Mr. Best sort of owes Barnabas the thank you card of the century. And he does. So, again, Barnabas takes this bold risk to go back to 1897. It doesn't really pan out the way he completely wanted it to. He did not help Chris at all. I mean, I would say this. Here's more my question. Because when Barnabas leaves 1897, he doesn't go straight back. He goes back to 1796. Did Barnabas leave 1897 knowing the fact that, hey, Charles Delaware Tate might be able to help Chris more than I could? That's my question to you guys. I have my own answer, but I don't want to influence anyone else's answer. I'll give my answer on Twitter at Collinwood Huff. I won't give my answer here because I don't want to influence anyone's answer. If you guys listen to this, I'll give my answer probably by 4 or 5 o'clock because that way I'm still not influencing anyone else's answer because that's not something I want to do here. I want you to have your own answer. Because keep in mind, Barnabas knows what Charles Delaware Tate can do. He knows what he did do. Now, did Barnabas leave 1897 satisfied, going, you know what? Maybe I can find this Tate guy and maybe he can help Chris. What do you guys say? What's your answer? Now, Barnabas continuing to be the bold risk taker. He takes on the Leviathan, obviously, which he burns down the antique shop. That's my favorite scene in Dark Shadows. The fire of the antique shop. What a scene, right? And again, with the Leviathan things, I talked about that in my previous video where They had too many weaknesses. And then there's 1995, which I think, you want to talk about the brave and the bold. That is Barnabas and Julia. They are the brave and then the bold. Coming off of 1970 Parallel Time, where they conquer, seemingly have conquered all and escaped from the wrath of Angelique's father. They really leave 1995 with, or sorry, leave 1970 Parallel Time with, Roxanne, no real closure for Roxanne. And, is she dead? Is she alive? That's something you could debate. But in 1995, and the reason I skipped Parallel Time is because I think really Parallel Time, Barnabas had no reason to stay other than to help the family. Um, Again, I like Parallel Time. I don't hate it, but at the same time, I'll come back to that in a second. And because to me, 1995 is more my favorite thing. 9 episodes, 9 beautiful, terrifying episodes. And despite it all, Barnabas stays firm. But even he sees this is like, holy crap, this is like bad, like here. And he sees it right away. I mean, the tombstones of the dead family members, Carolyn is crazy, Quentin is crazy. I mean, it's not looking good. To say things look bleak is, well, you know. But on the other hand of this, he stays firm and he does worry about Julie. He goes, I don't know how the sheriff could have found out. And she's like, don't you? And he's like, you betrayed. And she told him what he did. And so, I mean, 1995 is one of the most dangerous times for Barnabas. I would dare say it's as dangerous as 1897, if not more. Again, 9 episodes, only 9 episodes, and they're beautiful episodes. Now, when you look at Parallel Time, though, Barnabas is taking a bit of a risk, and really the first real risk is, going home with, Carolyn Loomis and William Holland's Head Loomis, who's a writer. And again, this is sort of where the the one lady got the idea for Interview with a Vampire because the author is interviewing the vampire, Barnabas being the vampire, and finally Barnabas just kills him. Well, not kills him, bites Will and turns him. I'll say this: though William Loomis is a bit sinister, his death is heartbreaking to Carolyn. I mean, they really did love each other, and Barnabas sort of causes a lot of this in a weird way. I hate to put the blame on him, though he's a bold risk taker and wants to, help the family. Really, there's things he's missing. I mean, he doesn't realize that, you know, the twin was really, at one point in time Alexis, and here's Angelique who just uses her. Um, Again, by the time Barnabas actually comes out of his coffin, a lot of things have happened. So, and he's taking this bold risk by messing. The boldest risk he takes is when he's standing in that room. He goes, "Let me look into the eyes." That scene is so. And she's like, "My eyes are burning. My eyes are burning." And she walks in, and there's Barnabas. He turns like, "Oh, you're Angelique." And so she's like, "Who are you? What are you?" Because no normal person could have did that. And so this is where the other Julia, gets killed by our Julia. Barnabas doesn't really want her to interfere anymore because he feels it's too much of a risk. Obviously, they conquer all. Julia almost gets killed. Barnabas at first thinks she is dead because of a misinterpretation. So, because they hand the psychic the wrong clothes. I love that, by the way. Here's this dead woman's clothes. hey, the woman who was wearing that clothes last did actually die. Grayson Hall killed her. No, Julia Hoffman killed Julia. Beautiful, by the way, beautiful. So they, she really takes a lot of risks. So does Barnabas. And again, when they leave parallel time, you know, again, Angelique's dad is is a Stokes. Uh, Amazing, right? Amazing. So you have you know Angelique's father trying to get to Barnabas and Julia. They get out of parallel time. It's this basically this entire arc should be entitled "Escape from Parallel Time." You know how instead of "Escape from New York," "Escape from Parallel Time," or at least the final episode should be. Um, Again, I'm having a little fun here today. So again, I talked about 1995. I think eight really. You want to talk about how they felt helpless in 1995? I love how they repeat that same formula in 1970 because it's so difficult because everybody has taken Barnabas and Julia's word up until this point. They've never been infallible. And now it's like we're questioning Barnabas and Julia up and down about, hey, you're wrong. This you're off. You're wrong. And it's because of well, because of Sebastian Shaw, and really because you have another vampire, a mysterious vampire, who is going to be revealed as this 1970 Roxanne Drew. I agree with Penny that Penny Dreadful. Shout out to her. Link to her channel will be in the description box. I do feel they gave every hint that she had a connection with Judah Zachary, and to me, in my opinion, I think that Roxanne was one of the first Drews, was a part of the first Drew family colony settlers in Collinsport, and she ended up going missing because of Judah Zachary, and he ended up turning her into a vampire for whatever reason. Maybe he I'd like to think Roxanne was secretly. It's sort of like similar to Barnabas and Angelique. Roxanne was originally Judah Zachary's first lover, not Angelique, not the Mary thing, but because she betrayed she and both. I think they were two. There were ultimately two betrayers, and one of them was Roxanne Drew. Angelique was punished as a witch. Roxanne was punished to be a vampire. But the difference being, because she was loyal to the Collins family, she was mad at them because they did nothing to help her. Maybe she went to them and they did nothing to help her. And Judah Zachary ended up chaining her up, using that anger against them, and then unleashed her. I think that's something that really, really was well. I don't know if it was ever a thought process, but I'd like to think it was, in my opinion. Again, I love the mysterious vampire plot. I wish they would have played it out a little longer, but I think they played it out just right in the long run. I really love it. They're really, really well done. Does not get enough credit as a vampire, Roxanne Drew. So the terror to me of 1970 is Barnabas and Julia basically watch the events of 1995 unfold in front of them in the 70s, which is just terrifying. They end up using Julia ends up using Quentin's staircase. Barnabas ends up using the E chain at the old house, and they go back to 1840. In 1840, are they as bold? They're pretty bold, but I think they're also, at first, they're a bit cautious. But I think Barnabas is sort of realizing, you know what? We've been bold, but we need to be bolder and come out and ask for Angelique for help. And even Julia, I think, says it too. I think you want to look at one of the most shocking things about 1840, because remember, 1840 predates 1897. There's no Diablos. We're not hearing about Diablos rewarding her with anything. Um, with that ask, Barnabas, because you'd have my gratitude. Hey, that was enough. Again, when I say Barnabas was a bold risk taker, he really was. And I think that's what makes his character. Again, there's so many aspects to the character of Barnabas, but one of the biggest aspects is his risk taking abilities and how bold he was to take those risks. Sorry, I jumbled my words there. Okay, so link to Tara Collingwood channel will be in the description box. You guys have a great day. I have 2 more videos to do. Again, one will be later tonight. Bye bye.